Ambassador Ford, Diplomatic Mission to Kepler 1649c by Joseph N. Wdowski. Really? A month had passed, and the Emperor finally agreed to meet with Ambassador Ford for a second audience. Ford once again stood before the boy Emperor with the former wives of his late father all standing behind him. They all still held their traditional fans covering their faces. Lady Gwengarra stood just behind the throne. This time the boy Emperor had no questions for Ford. Instead, Ford was there to only listen to the final decision of the Imperial Court on their future relations with the Earth's Western Alliance. Minister Gorlock, translating for Ford, explained that the Emperor agreed to open formal diplomatic and trade relations with the United States and its allies. They will trade seeds of their flora in exchange for human technology in health, computers, and aerospace. Lady Gwengarra once again whispered into the Emperor's ear. The Emperor added, "In addition for your tea and coffee." The boy Emperor made it clear that he would allow this exchange, but it must be over a period of time, to give his society time to adjust to these revolutionary advances in technology. Ford thanked Rugath the 35th for his wisdom and for his friendship. Having waited nearly 3 months for this achievement, the audience itself took only minutes of his time. The next morning, the sky was sunnier than usual. It was midsummer, and the world was at its closest point to its home star in its orbit. With his back to his office door, he was looking out his large window at the river. He had already informed his government using their spooky physics interstellar communicator. The device used two atoms that had, as Einstein called it, a spooky connection. No matter how distant the two connected atoms were from each other, they would immediately respond to any change to the other. Like the centuries-old telegraph, the interstellar communicator used Morse code to send messages. The reply message from Earth included personal congratulations from President Ag for a job well done. The State Department informed him that in 4 months he will be replaced with a permanent ambassador and a full diplomatic staff. Ford's mission on Kepler 1649c was a success. Reflecting on his 3 months on this world, he could see the bench near the river where he had his conversation with Lady Gwengarra over a month ago. She would still see him from time to time, but always in very formal ways. Their relationship never got closer. He wondered if he had made the right decision, pointing out the fact that they could never have spring and flower. Thinking of her, in his hands he held the joining box. Looking at the box, he wondered if he and Lady Gwengarra held it together, would it open? They had never tried. Should they try, or would the box somehow know they were not meant to be? A knock came to his door. Spinning his desk chair around, he placed the box in front of him on his desk. Enter. Scott opened the door, announcing that Ambassador Bellarmine was here to see him. Without Ford saying anything, she entered, leaving her entourage out in the waiting area. She closed the door behind her. He stood as she entered, surprised by her wearing a kipao. The tight-fitting dress showed all her curves and flat stomach. "That's a traditional Chinese dress, not Mongolian," he stated to her. "Yes, it is, Thomas." She took his hand in hers. "I think it suits me. No?" Thomas offered her a seat. "Yes, most definitely. It is not a dress most women can wear. It is very beautiful on you." She smiled as she sat, while he returned to his chair behind his desk. She then made a pouting face. "I am a little peeved at you, Thomas." He noticed that her English was oddly improving. Her accent was nearly undetectable. "I am sorry to hear that. I assure you, whatever I might have done, upsetting you was never my intention." He was sensing she was not really angry with him. It was her way to get his attention. "I heard the Emperor granted you a second audience, while I have still not received my first," she coyly said to him. He could see how her mannerisms would allure many men, yet he was not falling for it. If anything, he did not like the idea of her trying to use her feminine powers. The dress, the girlish pouting, the sweet coyness in her voice. He knew it was all an act. He did, thanks to Lady Gwengara being kind enough to speak to him on my behalf. Minister Gorlock also mentioned that most of the guilds had lobbied the Emperor to give me a second audience. He kept their conversation very professional, making it clear to her that her false seduction would not work on him. His mentioning Lady Gwengara seemed to upset her. Her pouting face changed to a more real and serious expression. Lady Gwengara is very attractive, even for an alien. She is, he honestly answered, souring her face more so. Looking down, she noticed the joining box on his desk. What's this? She reached out, taking hold of one end of the box to pull it towards her. He instinctively grabbed the other end of the box, trying to prevent her from taking it. As they both held opposite ends of the joining box, it suddenly opened. Taking the box from her, he desperately tried to reclose it. No matter how much force he would place on the lid of the box, it would not remain shut and would spring open. What is in the box? She was surprised by him forcefully snatching it from her. Looking at her, he still tried to shut the box. The thought of Lady Gwengara seeing the box opened without her, made him slightly panic. He felt guilty that he had opened the box with Bola and not Lady Gwengara. It was as if he had broken a trust with Lady Gwengara, that he was somehow unfaithful to her. What is in the box? Bola dropped all her pretenses and questioned Ford. Thomas, calming himself down, he gave up trying to shut the box. It was clear to him that once opened, it could not be resealed. He placed the box in front of him, between him and Bola. He looked at her differently, realizing that it was with her that he was able to open the joining box. As beautiful and intelligent Bola was, he did not trust her. He thought to himself that the box must be wrong. His being clearly stunned by what had just happened, Bola once again took hold of the box, pulling it towards her, looking inside. My goodness, it is so beautiful. She reached into the box, taking out a gold and jeweled flower. It fit in the palm of her hand. Considering his odd reaction, it came to her. Was this a gift for Lady Gwengara? The feelings of jealousy washed over her again. She hardly knew Ford. There were no reasons for her to be jealous. He was not even that handsome a man. She had been with movie stars of the Russian, Mongolian, and Chinese cinemas, men much more handsome than Ford. Yet she could not deny these alien feelings she had for him. A tear appeared from the corner of her eye. Ford, seeing her tear, realized she was showing him her true emotions. Her sharing her raw, honest emotions had a much greater and surprising effect, an effect that all her earlier manipulations failed to achieve. He reached across his desk and took her hand. It was not meant for Lady Gwengara. It seems it was meant for you, he tried to comfort her. She looked into his eyes, clenching his hand tighter. Really? He reached to her open hand that was still holding the jeweled flower and closed her fingers around it. It seems so, Bola. The end.